Sunlit Peaks and Dark Valleys, a quote from a novel. I was asking my wife because it was actually contained in a novel by another person, and I can't remember who the original quote was by. I think that the quote was contained in another book called Mr. Ives' Christmas by Oscar Huelos. But actually the whole idea of the piece really centers around, the piece has 3 movements, and the whole idea of the piece centers around the second movement because when the Oklahoma City bombing took place, I was at home and followed all of that in all its horror. And like lots of us have several of those images just engraved in my heart forever, I really do. And of course, I grew up out there, so it was doubly painful. You know, I mean, I'm a Midwesterner, tried and true. I don't feel comfortable east of the Alleghenies or west of the Rockies very much. And so it was a very terrible experience. And so I decided to try to somehow or other put that into some kind of a musical expression, which I've done in things like that in the past, either good things or bad things. So the first thing I did was I went to my room right after this thing happened. I went up to my studio and picked up my pencil, and in about 2 hours' time wrote a little violin duet based on the first piece of music I think I ever learned as a little kid. Well, there were 2 pieces of music I can remember when I was quite small, and I was a show-off already by the time I was 4 years old, so my parents used to have me sing for people. I remember I could sing 2 things. The one was Happy Days Are Here Again, because it was the Depression, right? And the other one was Jesus Loves Me. And I guess probably most children in America somewhere along the line have learned that little hymn. You know, it's a very old hymn. It's from the middle of the 19th century by a whole series of really rather good hymnists who grew in New England. And so I wrote a duet for 2 violins based on the hymn, and it was a little short, just a little short 2-minute thing that I wrote that afternoon. And somehow or other, when it got around to writing the piece for Walter and Elsa and Gary, that I wasn't through with that in my own mind emotionally. And so the middle movement of this piece is really based on Jesus Loves Me, and you can hear it in the middle. Only it takes on a whole other aura. It's in a very sinister setting. The piano's being played with a bass drum beater, which is kind of quasi-military. And he also plays a slide whistle, which is a child's toy. But the whole effect is very surrealistic and not at all nice. Yes, it's just it's just academic. Yeah, so I mean, I think that everything we do comes from the very core of our experience as we live, grow up, grow old, and die. That in point of fact, I believe that anything that makes a sound can be used in a musical composition. Because music is made not by a musical instrument, by a musician, right? Just as, you know, theater is not made by the theater, it's made by an actor, you know, so that it's the person doing it that is the expression of the art, not some extraneous thing. Although it's hard to think of an instrument as being terribly extraneous, but nevertheless, you get my point.
Don, we're delighted with your piece, of course, but one of the things that I always find interesting is how a composer approaches, first of all, the idea of writing for these 3 particular instruments. Do you have any particular views of these 3 instruments as a group, or any particular feelings?
Actually, it felt very natural to me, so I didn't give it a lot of thought, frankly. I mean, it seemed okay. Everything made sense to me. There are certain instrumentations that we run into in classical music that I still am not at home with. You know, the old standard string trio with a cello instead of a clarinet, I find very hard to think about.
Is that so?
Yeah, if somebody asked me to do that, I'd think twice before I'd say yes.
How come?
I don't know. It's just one of those, you know, one of those things. It doesn't feel comfortable. I've not been particularly with the repertoire that's out there for that instrumentation. Haven't felt very interested in it either. So I don't know. It's just a prejudice, maybe.
Yes.
Who knows? But anyway, no, I didn't have any problem. I didn't think about it. It seemed natural, and I just did it.
It just so for you, it was a homogeneous combination.
Yes.
Because we've had one of our composers felt that because the 3 instruments are so different, that he found that you know, it's not like writing for
Well, you know,
string instruments that blend easily
In
together.
point of fact, when I told a couple of my composer friends what I was going to do, they said exactly that. They said, you know, and I never had that feeling at all.
Yeah.
But I had other people tell me, oh, that's a really strange combination. That must be
Yes.
hard to write for, said they, or words there like that. And I just never felt that way. I don't know why. It just seemed okay to me. And so I didn't give it two thoughts, actually.
Yes. You employ a lot of interesting effects, rhythmic effects, and especially a lot of coloristic effects to get the
Well, you know, I
drama that you want,
I'd
right?
like to say something about that. I think
Yes.
an effect is the pine and is the nightingale and the pines of rum. I think if it really is integrated into a musical composition, then it's no longer an effect. I'm just quibbling with the words a little bit, because I think what I was telling the young lady here before was that to me, anything that makes a sound can be incorporated into a musical composition if it's intelligently put together. In that case, I don't think it's an effect anymore. It becomes an integral part of the piece.
Also, I was interested in the form, in the shape of your movements. How would you characterize that?
It's just gut instinct is but what makes good shaping and good timing, you know. People ask me constantly, and I've told this story a million times, what's your compositional technique? How do you write music? How do you do this and that and the other? You know, how do you put all this together? And I say, well, there used to be a guy played linebacker for the Baltimore Colts named Big Daddy Lipscomb, and one day a bunch of reporters were interviewing him, and they said, Big Daddy, how do you play linebacker? And then they went back and he said, do you think he was going to say, well, when they do a run, I do this, and a quarterback draw, I do this, and a pass, I do this. And Big Daddy said, I scoops them all up. He says, I finds the one with the ball and I puts him down. And that's how I write music. I find the one with the ball and I puts him down.
It's one of our other composer friends from Austria was saying it's very difficult to write more than one piece, but nowadays he feels that a composer is always expected to write something different.
Well, I don't know if I agree. You see, I mean, he can say that, but I think that one thing that hasn't changed over all these hundreds of years is basically the attitude about what makes a balanced work of art. And that's what that was. What Sonata Allegro form was about was this: put this in the center, balance it with this properly, and do it creatively and interestingly. And that's still true. Unless you're an advocate of certain things. If you believe in aleatoric music, then that's another matter. Then those issues don't matter. Or if you believe in music that's derived from Indonesian or Japanese music, like Philip Glass does, then that doesn't matter. Yeah. But if you still believe in the whole question of timing and balances and climaxes and putting all those things together with an internal logic that makes sense, then things haven't really changed basically all that much.
Where do you think we're heading? I'm just interested in your opinion.
Towards the 21st century.
Yeah, I know. But musically speaking, have you got any clues? I mean, is it going to continue with these many different streams?
I don't know. That part I'm not sure of.
Because in the 60s, I mean, the kind of there was a certain school of writing, or that was maybe dominant in the Western world.
Mm-hmm. But it's actually where the 60s where the clarinets began to break down seriously also in the 60s. You know, this is where we got a lot of fragmentation of ideas. I think that whether or not these things will go on in all these directions that are going on right now, I don't know. I suspect for a while longer, because it in some ways is a representation of how fragmented our society is. And I think so it's a reflection of where we are right now, you know, in all these various beliefs and directions and pockets within the society that are sort of separate from each other. Yeah. So, but as far as direction, I have a vague idea of where we maybe all be heading someday. You know, 25 to 50 years away now, heading toward. And what I see possibly happening is a rather interesting synthesis of classical music and jazz, which I think would be good for everybody concerned. Because I think we need a way to bring something about that will envelop more people, and the jazz musicians need the same thing. You know, I actually once upon a time was a professional jazz musician, and I count among my friends a lot of people now who are really quite famous in that field. And one of them is a wonderful, I mean, he's maybe the best there is, a jazz guitarist named Jim Hall. And Jim said to me, he says, jazz began to lose its audience when people quit dancing to it.
Oh, isn't it interesting?
You know, it's an interesting thought. I mean, he said that to me just a couple months ago, one night, you know, having dinner together. He said, jazz began to lose its audience when people quit dancing to it. And so they're searching for something, and I think that what I find right now is really pretty interesting, and that is that I find tons of the young jazz musicians are really interested in what I'm doing. And, you know, and very, very anxious to expand their capabilities. Yeah. And I think that somewhere down the road, all of this may end up meaning something. Anyway, so there we are.
Well, thanks very much.
Well, thank you.
It's great to have your piece.
I already told them what good guys you are, so we don't have to do that again.
Didn't I? That. We appreciate that. We love your piece and look forward to it.